This is One Sentence News, a daily podcast featuring 3 news stories with a sentence-long summary and 1 sentence of context apiece. I'm Colin Wright. It's Friday, November 12th, 2021. Let's talk about the news. From The Guardian, RollsRoyce secures £450 million for mini nuclear reactors venture. Engineering firm RollsRoyce has secured more than £450 million, which is just over $600 million, from the UK government and private investors to develop small modular nuclear reactors, or SMRs, as part of a larger effort to fill infrastructural gaps when fossil fuels are rotated out from the global energy mix. These SMRs are a new, more concise design meant to be cheaper, faster, and simpler to deploy, easier to repair and maintain, safer, and quite a bit smaller. They'll also produce a lot less energy than larger, more complex, previous generation nuclear power plants. But their modularity, lower cost, and less risky designs are appealing to nations looking for sources of steady, always-on power to pair with less predictable energy derived from wind, solar, and hydro sources. From Reuters, Google loses challenge against EU antitrust ruling and $2.8 billion fine. Search giant Google has lost an appeal against a 2017 fine of $2.8 billion levied after the European Union's competition commissioner determined the company was leveraging its price comparison shopping service to gain unfair advantage over smaller European companies. This case was just one of 3 that were decided against Google in the past decade in the EU, and which in aggregate represent a potential total fine of nearly $9.5 billion if they lose all their appeals. This series of fines is part of a larger effort by the EU to regulate the internet and economic activity on the internet so that it better aligns with what they perceive to be European values in that regard. Google has the option of appealing again to Europe's top court, the EU Court of Justice, but hasn't yet announced whether it intends to do so. And from Bloomberg, Belarus threatens EU gas as Merkel pushes Putin in migrant spat. There's a lot going on in that headline, but basically, an apparent Belarusian effort to move migrants from eastern Belarus west into the EU via Belarus's borders with Poland, Latvia, and Lithuania has triggered calls by Germany's leader, Angela Merkel, to Russia's leader, Vladimir Putin, who is believed to be helping Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko implement this pseudo-attack. The UK, US, and EU are reportedly planning new sanctions against Belarus's leadership, and Lukashenko has said, in essence, if you hit me with new sanctions, I will block gas from Russia meant for the EU that passes through Belarus. This has turned into quite the confrontation, and Putin hasn't said anything about it so far, which could mean he's actually not involved, or that he's using Lukashenko as a frontman for a new type of hybrid warfare, which Putin historically favors, and which allows everyone involved to deny anything's happening, even as it's happening. Some EU nations are moving troops to their borders to prevent this flood of migrants from illegally crossing into their respective countries, and Russia has moved something like 100,000 troops and a bunch of military hardware down to its border with Ukraine, which is reportedly unnerving enough that U.S. military commanders have had meetings with EU leadership to talk options in case Putin decides to either invade Ukraine or launch some other type of hybrid attack. And the gas shortage in Western Europe continues to be an issue, inflating prices and raising energy concerns heading into the winter. About 20% of the gas Russia sends to the EU passes through Belarus, so this threat from Lukashenko isn't idle. The worst-case worries about military conflict breaking out are thought to be unlikely at this time. If you're finding some value in One Sentence News, consider leaving a quick review wherever you get your podcasts and/or sharing the show with a friend. You can find out more about this show or subscribe to the email version at onesentencenews.com. And you can support this and other related projects, like the Let's Know Things and Brain Lenses podcasts, at understandery.com.